Thanks, Larry. All right, with it being 6 o'clock, we're going to go ahead and start the work session. Heath Freeman's running a couple minutes late, but he was comfortable with us starting without him. We've got only one discussion item on the agenda for the work session, and that is to discuss South Gardner Road, Center Street, specifically the speed posting and truck route. And Tim, I think that's you.
Yes, as you said, it's just intended to be a follow-up to the previous questions and the discussions we had on Center Street. I guess I'll just break it into two obvious pieces. Start off with the speed limit. Historically speaking, everybody knows, I think it was 2009, we had the traffic study done, and as a result of that, the speed limit was raised to 45 miles an hour on Center Street, south of Pawnee. I believe that the main reasoning behind that was the 85th percentile, primarily, and the observed 85th percentile was 47.5 miles an hour for northbound, 45.5 miles an hour for southbound. So obviously that correlates very well with the 45 mile an hour speed. But we wanted to look at a few other characteristics of the roadway that I think that are important. The pace speed is one, and it's defined as a 10 mile an hour range that has the greatest number of vehicles traveling within it. For southbound, it was 37 to 46 miles an hour was the predominant range, and for northbound, it was 39 to 48 miles an hour. Again, the 45 miles an hour falling right within that. And then the traffic volumes, I think, are worth discussing. The last official count we had in 2008 was a little over 6,000 vehicles per day. We had performed two additional counts. I would call them unofficial. They were single day counts, and we were just gathering some information. And those were roughly around 9,000 vehicles a day. So you can see there's a fairly significant increase that has occurred since 2008 in the traffic volumes. And lastly is the accident record. And I think I brought that up, maybe these same numbers before, but as you can see, the numbers have, especially the past 2 years, have gone up quite a bit. I looked a little more in depth at the 2012 accidents. I would say that actually 7 of them would probably be, you could attribute to speed or other factors. I mean, one was like hitting a deer, and a couple of them were just off of Center Street, so it didn't really apply. But regardless, it's clear that the accident rate has gone up the last couple of years. So having looked at all that, what the staff's recommendation is that we would lower the speed limit from the 45 it is today down to 40, which we feel is really the bottom limit for this type of roadway that we have. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have questions?
I guess I have more questions about the trucks and your rationale for keeping them on there.
Okay. Well, actually, I've got questions about the speed, but I wanted to make sure there wasn't anybody else that had a question that they wanted to ask about the speed. I guess my big question about the speed is the idea of taking it from I-35 all the way down to Pawnee. Maybe if we should be looking at dropping it from I-35 to 183rd Street and then drop it down 35 miles an hour from there. We do have a busy intersection in 183rd that if they can see that the speed's lowering while they're approaching it, it might make sense. On top of that, we've got Veterans Park and a crosswalk, which we discussed last week before, with the CARS program. in that ideally, we wouldn't want to have an intersection, I mean, a crosswalk in the middle of the block like that. However, it's there currently, until we get signalization on 183rd Street. Would it possibly be wise to maybe lower the speed limit to 40 and then lower it to 35 at 183rd Street instead of Pawnee?
I don't know if there's a firm answer for that. I think one thing we've looked at is that it's kind of a natural progression when you're going from the 4-lane and narrowing down to the 2-lane to make that, I mean, it just kind of coincides to lower the speed limit at that same location.
But that's after,
Right,
we're saying?
yes.
Okay.
I like the mayor's suggestion, actually. Because I was kind of, I know the suggestion was 40, but I was actually wondering why shouldn't it be 35, just because of all the activity in the schools, and
Right.
so I like the idea of changing it at the intersection.
I agree.
Well, speaking of the schools, I think that as part of any kind of a speed limit program that we decide on South Center and north of 183rd, we need to take into consideration the Grand and Center intersection. I think we need to have at least an exploration of a school zone in that area for the purposes of school children having to cross in that area. I don't think their school children are going to come from that neighborhood across the street and come all the way down to 183rd or down to Veterans Park, cross there and come north to Center, to Grand. We're going to need to have some sort of a provision there to handle school children, whether it's a crossing guard, a school zone placed in there similar to what's at Madison and Waverly, something like that in order to be able to accommodate the traffic of those children coming across the street.
Absolutely.
So, I don't know what USD 231's position is on that, but I would very strongly suggest that we consider that as part of this plan.
Well, and then maybe it'd be a good opportunity to reach out to our friends over at the school district about their thoughts on crossing. I'm sure that they have ideas of their own.
Yes. Well, and Councilmember Ricci, the project we're doing on Grand Street, we actually have in there an allocation to have a crosswalk designed on Center Street. The timing of it, we don't have it haven't designed it yet, and hasn't been in the plans, but it will be added as part of that project. So that will be happening soon, and quite likely a crossing guard. To me, the crossing guard is the safest way to go. But
So let me make sure I understand. Your proposal is not to go with 40 miles per hour from I-35 to Pawnee, but down to 35.
No, go to 40 miles an hour to 183rd Street, and then 183rd Street north. We'd go to 35 until we reach the bridge. And Steve's talking about making sure we've got a good crosswalk for the school kids when the Grand School stuff, but Tim says we've got that already. I was driving home the other day, and I'd take both exits depending on the time of day and the traffic, plus with all the bridge construction down there. And I was going north on Center Street, and I did know, and I realized that at some point we're probably not going to have that crosswalk for the Veterans Park there, and maybe this would be better directed at Public Works, but you can't really see the crosswalk sign. It's obscured by a tree, some tree limbs, and the paint on the crosswalk is hard to see. It seems like if we could do something high visibility there, it wouldn't cost a whole lot more money, add a little additional safety to a park that's getting a lot of use this summer, especially basketball players. My guess is that we've got a lot of kids that want to grow up and be Kansas Jayhawks. So, but I think it would be a good idea to look into doing that as well, and look at the signage heading south as well.